Hey guys, it's been a long time, and by a long time I mean it's been 2 months since I made a video about the OfferUp films that I found online, and I'm finally making the one I meant to make 2 months ago. Alright, let's get started. So the first reel that I found or looked at was I call it the Castle Film Extravaganza. Basically someone just took a reel and spliced together a bunch of different Castle film shorts that don't really seem to have any thing in common other than the fact that they're Castle films. For those of you who don't know what Castle films are, and I know a lot of people do, so you can skip this part if you already know, but Castle Films was basically a film distribution company that was founded by cameraman Eugene W. Castle. The company basically produced and distributed small gauge films, so 16mm and 8mm, Super 8mm, and Super 8. And these films were basically a bridge between the art of film collection and everyday consumers. You know, these film shorts, they were only about 4 to 12 minutes, were basically condensed versions of feature films or cartoons. And it was a way for regular people to digest feature films with home movie projectors in their own home. And Castle basically wanted to recreate what people were experiencing in a theater, it's just that they could experience it now at home. So unlike a lot of film collectors who often try to find rare, hard to find, inexpensive films, these films are not that. These films are usually not sought out by collectors, and these films and projectors were often sold in the most random places like sporting goods stores and camera shops, which that makes sense, and department stores. And many children, and I know a lot of people personally in my life, that's how they learned to project, was using Castle films in their home. And they were often marketed as toys to children. And in 1947, Castle Films merged with Universal's, a Universal subsidiary that allowed them to access Universal's library. And so then they would release versions, condensed versions of a lot of the Universal films in their library, you know, Universal monster films, Abbott and Costello, cartoons, you name it. Eugene Castle was like, I want it. These films were often silent. All of the ones that I have are silent. So the first short Castle film that I have on this reel is a Woody the Woodpecker cartoon, The Cracked Nut. So the film originally made its debut in 1941, but the print I have is from 1946, which makes sense. And it doesn't have a head, so it doesn't have a countdown leader, it doesn't have extra leader protecting it, which is probably why it has a lot of water damage. And so someone didn't take care of it, whoever had it before me. So there's kind of several, I think it goes on for a couple of feet, the damage, but it doesn't really show up later in the reel. And it was, fun fact, the first solo short featuring Woody the Woodpecker, which I thought was kind of cool. So here is the reel in question. It's on this rusty 16mm reel. As you can see, the picture just starts right away. Like I said, there's no head on it. So the second film that I have on the reel is another cartoon called Mice and Council, which was a Terry-toon. So it originally debuted 1934, but it's from 1946 as well. And basically Terry-toons was an animation studio in New York that produced animated shorts for the theatrical circuit. It was founded by 3 men, Paul Terry, Frank Moser, and Joseph Kaufman. And it was known as one of the most low-budget animation studios, so think Disney and then think the opposite of that. And many of the characters that were featured in these cartoons were Mighty Mouse, Heckle and Jekyll, Gandy Goose, Sourpuss, Dinky Duck, and many, many more. So in 1938, Paul Terry arranged to release his older cartoons through Castle Films, so that's why we have things like Mice and Council. And this one actually was pretty good. I don't think this really had any damage. It also doesn't have a head or extra leader. It's just kind of spliced into Woody the Woodpecker. I think there's maybe a couple of black frames before that, but it does have the opening title sequence and the end credit sequence, which is really great. So the next one I have is the Sport Parade. I didn't catch the exact name of it, but it looked like it was water sports. I didn't get a lot of frames of this one because it was a lot of action shots, so it was pretty blurry. There wasn't really something I could photograph clearly. So the print is from 1945. Castle had different series that included parade in the title. He had a background in newsreels, so he first produced the annual news parade short, which basically was like a compilation of all the important news of the year that had happened. And then he expanded to different themes of parades in 1940s, which is the World Parade, which were travelogues, sports films, so the Sports Parade, which is what I have, the Adventure Parade, which featured animals, and then the Band Parade, which were basically musicals. And so I have he has like different, Sports Parade water sports, Sports Parade ice sports. The first Sport Parade I have is from the water sports. It's the Sport Parade, not really interested, but I think it's still kind of cool to see like a slice of, life in the 40s. So the next one that I have was also a series. He did a chimp series. So there was one called Chip the Aviator. And so this is part of a series that went from 1940 to 1962, which features a chimp doing various jobs. I think it's really funny because it's just like the Chimp the Aviator. Okay, he's an aviator. Chimp the, firefighter. It's so funny. People love when animals do like human shit. I don't know. They think it's like the funniest thing in the world. And I have to admit, like, I love seeing him in the plane with his like aviator outfit on. I thought it was great. I'm like, my hero. So the second Sports Parade that I had was a ice sports parade series. So part of the Sports Parade series, ice sports, it's between 1944 and 1947 is when they were made. And so mine is called Devils on Ice, so it just has to do with different ice sports. And so the last one that I have is another Terry tune, which is Kiko the Kangaroo. And most of these, other than Woody the Woodpecker, have been good quality. Again, they don't really have a lot of leader between them. It's like usually 3 to 4 frames before the next Castle film starts. So this one had some burn marks on the perf. I don't know why, but it was touched. I don't know if it had to do with like it just was near the lamp. I don't know, someone stopped it multiple times and left the lamp on when these shorts, so the Kiko shorts, were distributed by Castle between 1944 to 1947. This print is from 1946, so it's kind of in the middle of that series. And it features Paul Terry's boxing kangaroo, and actually one of the few characters from the studio to have its own theme song, which you can't hear because it's silent. And there's even actually a Kiko plush way back during its original release in 1936 to 37. I looked up the plush and I kind of want it. It's kind of cute. I love plushies, so I would so get it, but it looks really difficult to find. Next reel I got was a educational film. I'm gonna call it that. I couldn't find any information on this film on the internet, which kind of makes it a little bit mysterious and pretty cool. I haven't watched the entire thing, but it's in pretty good condition. So it's called Judgment on the Water, and it's from 1985. And what I can discern from it is that it's a boat safety educational film. There's a lot of shots of like someone accidentally drowning. There's one of like people just drinking an insane amount of Miller Lite and driving boats. So I'm gonna assume it's like, don't drink and drive a boat. I even looked up the producer of this, and I just like can't find anything, which is actually surprising because educational films are usually kind of easy to find, especially when they're affiliated with a specific like university. But maybe sometime I'll find it. If anybody is able to find anything about this film on the internet, that would be super duper cool, and let me know. I'm gonna keep looking, but for now I think this is like just one of the most random and kind of cool 16mm films I just happened upon. But it's called Judgment on the Water, and it's from 1985. So everyone kind of has their own niche when it comes to collecting 16mm. You know, some people just like features that are hard to find. Some people like just features in general from any decade. Some people like educational films. Some people like stag films. You know, it's all over the place. So I have a student film here, and I tried to find a date code, but I couldn't, and it looks like it was used for an art project. There's a lot of damage on it, on the film itself, that looks purposeful, I guess you could say. Like it was, like they just kind of let people do what they want with it, because as you can see, it broke at some point. That's because like it was taped, like layers and layers of the film were taped together or like painted together, and so it just snapped because there was a lot of chemical on it. And so I don't know if I can run it, you know, but I can try to run it. I haven't yet, but it looks like it was a student film or an independent film or something of that sort, because it's definitely newer, like within the last decade or so. So yeah, if this is your student film, let me know what it's about, and do you want it back, maybe? I don't know. So I don't know if these are student films as well. They just came on cores, so they're not even on reels. But it says Yale Laboratory on it, and at first I was like, oh, like the university? I don't know why I thought that, as if like, you know, all different universities have like an entire like film processing building or something, or like lab in there on campus. But it's actually from Hollywood, a place called Yale Laboratories on Hollywood, which I don't know if that still exists. But these are both negatives, and I can't really figure out what they are about, or you know, when they're from. They also look like student films. I don't know, I could be wrong. You know, I don't really know what to do with it. So, you know, the next reel that I found, which was honestly the one I was like the most excited about, and of course it has to turn out terrible, was a musical short called Harry James and His Trumpet. And the quality was just like god awful. I couldn't find too much info about the short at all. Anyway, here's a clip of me trying to take some frames from the print because it was so awful. So, since you will never, this is what I have. I think this is projectable, you guys. I don't think it's actually that bad. I think this could go through the projector. What do you guys think? Okay. I'm cutting some parts of it out to just look at a frame or two, since, you know, I can't. Here we go. Camera's over here. It looks fine. It looks fine. I don't see any issue with it. You know, I think whatever. I think it's whatever. Personally. We're just gonna cut some of that out. It's Harry James and his vinegar orchestra. So the last reel I have is on a core, and it's called Turkey Dock. That's all it says. It says tail, so it's backwards. It needs to be rewound. But it's so funny because, you know, I was like, well, it's some kind of wildlife documentary. You know, I looked at a few frames of it. I actually found a post on a Facebook page of the Missouri Department of Conservation, and they posted the whole entire film, and it's from 1970. It's called Return of the Wild Turkey, and it says it's from the Missouri Department of Conservation Film Archives. And so basically the general synopsis of it is: the Return of the Wild Turkey is much of the nation's woodlands is one of the more successful game management stories. The film traces the revival of these majestic birds and reviews the many problems which beset turkeys and threaten their habitat. So I thought that was pretty cool that I have like a copy, you know, I have my own print of something that's in like an archive somewhere. And it's interesting because I don't know if I'll ever watch it. Don't really care much about hunting, don't really like to see it. But if it's like having to do with conservation and like protecting them, I will definitely watch it. So this is kind of a bonus because it didn't really go in necessarily with this video or with the 35mm haul, but I found a 8mm home movie, and I love home movies and I love watching them, and you know, I usually make it a point to buy some if I see any reels at like a thrift store or antique store. And this one's titled Vacation 1961, Glacier National Park, Idaho and Oregon. And it's so beautiful. Like the shots are really amazing. Sometimes when you watch home movies, people didn't really know how to focus the camera or like light, you know, their surroundings or like use the camera really well. But this is like really beautiful. Like whoever shot this like knew how to use the camera, knew how to like capture his surroundings or her surroundings very, very well. And so I was just gonna end this video with some of those frames. So take it away.